Welcome back to the second edition of Thursdays with Mike. Our topic today is discussing the importance of shame and whether or not it is important. There's a generational thing involved here, and I do think how, I do believe how young people today interpret shame is very different than how they interpreted it when I was their age. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is definitely true. And so I wanted to get some wisdom in thoughts from Coach Pipes.
Well, Steve, I think we approach this because you talk about at your age. It was maybe not uncommon to hear people say you should be ashamed of yourself. And that sense of understanding something was wrong. So I did kind of a Shankar Vedantam thing. Do you listen to him with The Hidden Brain on
Oh
NPR?
yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
And
Sorry, that's when I lost. But yeah, keep going.
I listened to that and I thought, okay, well, maybe I should look up guilt and shame just to have a definition that we would work from. So it talks about here this, you can find it, and the breakdown is the same about any place I looked. Guilt arises from actions. Shame arises out of negative beliefs and perception of self. Guilt implies that you are a good person who made a mistake. It's more about morals and correcting behavior. Shame makes you see yourself as a problem, not a behavior. It's more of a judgment of self-worth. And so I got thinking about that, and I think, well, maybe, if we apply those definitions, shame may not be the right definitions now. And then I also thought about part of my college training years ago in principal in the basic education course with Dr. Dan Appelman, who was a fantastic instructor at UNI. I think he ended up at ULV, and that's another whole story. Um, he was a big fan of A.S. Neil, who was a Scottish writer about education. And one thing that has stayed with me since my junior year in college was the idea of freedom, but not license. And I think what we see happening today, and then when talk about you maybe felt shame, I think today, at least when we talk about students in the middle school and high school, and maybe elementary, is they have a sense of license and they don't understand that we do not have license to do whatever you want. That we would look at that and say, well, shame on you for doing that. You shouldn't do that. Well, maybe by the definitions I just shared, that may be the wrong word to use for it. Maybe it would be better say, you don't have license to do that. You've done something. You're a good person, which is very nice now, right? Very in the thinking now. You're a good person. We don't want you to feel as a bad person, but you've done something that you shouldn't do. That's not a good behavior. Let's look at correction. And I'd see this, just going with you here, flow on the ideas, see it in politics, greatly in politics today. This sense of, well, we can say we can do whatever we want. There's no decorum. And it's not so much of being woke about something or not saying something that's politically incorrect. It's recognizing that you just don't necessarily have license to do or say whatever you want in politics or in school. And if you and you've been in the university setting for years now, I don't know if you found it, you're also in a different culture than the American culture. But the sense that, well, I have a cell phone, so I can look at my cell phone whenever I want, or I need to call my mom, or my mom needs to call me. I'm sorry, we're in the middle of class, so you're going to pick up your phone and do whatever you want. Well, that's a sense of license, right? You're boring me in class today. I'm going to look at whatever I want to look at, or I'm going to play games on my cell phone, or whatever. I'm going to look up answers on my cell phone, whatever. I'm going to look up answers on my computer, which they now have ways to stem that in the classroom. So I think it's a sense when we look at this sense of is shame a good thing? If shame's not the right word, an understanding that you don't have license to do everything or anything you want, I think those are things we need to understand or gain an appreciation for. And like I say, when we look at politics, this recent thing that Trump did about posting, oh, he knew nothing about the post that had the Obamas pictured as apes. Well, that's something I would say, shame on you. You should feel shame. You should feel lack of self-worth for doing that because you certainly don't have license to do that. It was bad behavior. You should feel guilt about that. Frankly, it was morally corrupt. You ought to feel ashamed of that because that says something about your character, you as a person, and where is your self-worth, and you don't have license to do that. And I guess I kind of go back and thinking about this topic was, remember the story about the McCarthy era, and the quote that kind of brought that to a close was, Senator, have you no shame? And he didn't. He felt he had total license to do whatever he did, and he was doing things that showed him to be really a not very good person. That his self-worth was, like some people say, he sure liked the smell of his own cologne a whole lot, didn't he? With that, I'll throw it back to you.
Well, um, I happen to love the fact that Russ Feingold eventually got his Senate seat. I don't know that for me is like a poetic justice of all time. And now, by the way, it's now held by Ron Johnson, who is probably McCarthy 2.0. So if he could be, I mean, it's Wisconsin as screwed up as Iowa politics are. Wisconsin is almost as screwed
We-
up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's not where I wanted to go with this. Okay. Um, so I agree with you that shame is probably not the right word. I'm not we agree on that 100%. I I so to all listeners, I was in a speech contest a long time ago. The speech contest I won, and it was about
An event you went in.
it was a speech and it was an event I won in. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
original oratory, the ECIC original oratory
Mhm.
contest, and I won it. Giving us, and I actually went to Allstate on this, giving a speech where it was about raising the drinking age. And I didn't drink in high school, so I wasn't doing this speech because I wanted to help myself go drink. I thought here's my moral dilemma on why I thought it was wrong. Women aged 18 to 21 had fewer accidents related to alcohol than men of any age group. And so for me, it was morally wrong to prohibit women from being able to drink because men don't know how to drink and not drive. And so I was truly morally opposed to how Reagan and the Mothers Against Drunk Driving shoved through the thing that made it so people can't drink under the age of 21. I was like, this is not the right way to do it. Right. And I stick by that. I don't regret at all that take. But where I won the speech contest was my opening line in the speech contest was, our youth now have luxury. They no longer rise when their elders enter the room. They gobble their food and tyrannize their parents. That's a quote that it's a quote of Socrates from Plato or Plato to Socrates. Anyhow, it's a quote from over 2,000 years ago. The point being, every generation believes that the generation behind them is horrible. It's just, and so that's what they want to do. I can, in all truth, say, because I have been doing this now, where I now have had the child of one of my students as a student. I know you've had that, Mike. And there's something about having somebody come in and be like, yeah, my mom thought you were awesome. For those of you not in academia, you don't know what that does to you. It does something to you. Anyhow, I can say with all certainty that every iteration of students I've had are smarter and more self-aware than the previous ones. And so, in no way, and on where I want to go with this topic on shame, I don't, I'm not bashing today's 20-year-olds because they grew up in a world that I cannot comprehend, and I guarantee Mike can't comprehend because we did not have we didn't have this. We didn't
Yeah.
have the internet. We didn't have the interconnectivity. Jonathan Haidt's wonderful work on the anxious generation. Um, we didn't have that. And I don't know if my raising my hand is going to come out in the video, but okay. Anyhow, back, yeah, yeah. But I'm sticking with the word shame though, because there is something about the fact that, um, there, okay, this is where I'm giving the right wing some credit. They are right that giving participation trophies is a mistake. They're right. Participation trophies shouldn't happen. Um,
I don't know. Look at our current president. Never mind.
We cannot. If this
Okay.
conversation is about if this conversation is about the toddler in chief, then this conversation is going to go nowhere good. So,
Yeah, that's true. And you you may be right on that. And maybe we've become a society that thinks everybody has to feel good, that you can't feel like you didn't win. Isn't that the whole point of the participation trophy? Well, at least I got a participation ribbon, so I got something.
interpretation
Um,
ribbon I can go with, but I mean, it did at
but a
some point
trophy?
reach a point where anybody who participated got a little trophy, and it's like, oh,
That may be a bit much, but something to say, yes, I was there. And I do feel that kids need to feel good about themselves. But years ago, I heard a statistic about, and here we are morphing a little bit, the difference between like Japanese students and American students, and those students in Japan that are so, or any country where they're so wrapped around passing the exam to move forward. If you don't pass the exam, you don't move forward. That they were better academically, but American students, on contrast, felt better about themselves. They didn't have negative feelings because we didn't put that same limit, that same negative thing on, well, you didn't pass the exam. The curse is now we've got kids who get, just get social promotions in school, right?
oh
Well,
yeah,
we can't hold them back.
oh yeah.
That'll be bad. And I don't know where I come down on that. I can understand that. You don't want to be the 12-year-old in the 8-year-old class or the 10-year-old class. Um, but at some point, and this maybe gets, to the thing where I saw that everybody has to have somebody to blame. I can't have responsibility for that. Why did you do that? Oh, I didn't do that. Why are you on your phone? Oh, I'm not on my phone. I'm sorry. I
I'm
just saw that. And one thing
I'm
I never said, but I probably wanted to say was, so you're calling me a liar? Or the parents that would talk to you and say, well, my student wouldn't do that. So you're calling me a liar when I saw them do it and you're telling me they didn't do it? Wait a second. Time out. It's a complicated universe. Do I have
well,
answers? No. Do you have observations? Yes.
uh, one of my strengths is that I have no problem. So every at the university, we're given free reign to decide how we want to do it in our room, in our classroom. Okay. Uh, my general rule has been I don't care. If you disrupt my classroom, then it's an issue. Okay. And for the record, that worked. I've had the classes though, both male and female, where I'm like, okay, this is not working. So at least for the first 30 minutes of class, your cell phone has to be shut off. And if you can't shut it off and whatever, then I'm going to make everybody leave your phone at the front of the classroom. And what was great about it was the students took care of each other. When somebody got on their thing and started whatever, there'd be somebody nudging them, you know. But
Hmm.
again, I'm dealing with college students, so that's a different thing. I appreciate the fact that Iowa is now allowing schools to ban phones during the day. I think that's fantastic.
I do
Again,
too.
it goes back to Jonathan Haidt, Anxious Generation, whatever. But I want to go back, which, leave the phone aside. I want to go back to the topic of shame and let me redirect here. Um, uh, Something that I deal with that I never dealt with 15 years ago is the fact that I have students that expect me to be at their beck and call, not the other way around. Like somehow or another, I'm their servant. And I'm like, no, that's not the way
And
this.
we're having connection problems here.
Mhm. Okay. I have students who have been under the belief that I report to them, not them reporting to me. And so when I say I'll meet you for X, I'll meet you to discuss this, I'll meet you for whatever, they're like, oh, that doesn't work for me. No, that doesn't work for me. No, whatever. And I'm just like, then you don't really need my help.
Hmm.
And and then
It's interesting
but
because
then the follow up with that is they're like, but uh, I made it clear I wanted to meet with Steve, and Steve just wasn't willing to accommodate my schedule.
well, you probably kept office hours. They were published. The student
Oh
knew
yeah,
you had
of
office
course,
hours. They knew
of
when they
course.
were. They were probably morning and afternoons sometimes, so you had the ability to, if you're busy in the morning, I can see in the afternoon. If you're busy in the afternoon, I can see in the morning,
And
or by
I've
appointment.
always had office hours that I'm willing to meet outside of office hours if you just send me the time that you're available. And then I had students, and
By
this
appointment.
definitely has happened. I have students who say, "Oh, can I talk to you at 5 o'clock?" And I'm like, "I won't be on campus. I can Zoom with you. I can meet you virtually. I will not be on campus at 5 o'clock. I come at 8. I'm not staying past 5. So yeah. So anyhow, be happy to meet with you virtually. The 5 o'clock comes and no student.
Hmm. Hmm.
An hour later, oh, I missed it because can we do it tomorrow at 5? No, no, we can't. Nope, nope.
I mean, I changed careers. I taught for 25 years, then changed careers, and became the executive director, the CEO of a not-for-profit. And that was in 97. And I stayed there till the end of 2011. And one thing that happened somewhere in the middle of that was you start to see publications about um, understanding how to work with Gen Xers. How do you deal with a Gen Xer? What's their mindset? And I always thought, Gen Xer, why don't Gen Xers read books about how do you deal with a boomer? How do you work with a baby boomer? Why was the baby boomer expected to learn how to accommodate the Gen Xer, but the Gen Xer wasn't expected to learn how to accommodate and work with a baby boomer? Somehow, this sense of entitlement, and that's maybe another word to bring to the conversation, is where do you observe entitlement? That, like your quote from Plato or Socrates, it was all about entitlement. Young people today are entitled. And maybe we've seen that as things have changed, every generation sees the one following them as feeling more and more entitled. Um, I was talking when I substitute taught then after I retired, I came back and substitute taught for about 11 years. Quite often, 40 to 60% of the year I was back in the classroom. So I was pretty frequent there, got to know a lot of kids. I'm sure some liked me and some didn't. Cool. That's all right, right? All those people that tell you you're wonderful, divide that by about half. That may be about where you really are. Um, I was talking to one of the paraprofessionals who was hardworking, dedicated, did so much for kids. And I said something about helicopter parents. Well, it's helicopter parents. And she said to me, oh no, oh no, they're not helicopter parents. They're snowplow parents. Just plowing it out of the way, open it up for their kids. And there may be and people complaining that, oh my gosh, I'm getting calls from parents about what am I doing to their kids in my college classroom? I'm sorry, they're young adults. They're frankly, and some of them aren't young adults, they're adults, and they may be 20 years old, but I guess by then you're an adult. That we have this sense of entitlement that I can meet you by my schedule, Mr. Instructor, not by your schedule, even though you've posted and tried to make yourself as available as reasonably expected, can be reasonably expected. Um, it's the point where if you don't say it in your syllabus, then don't enforce that rule because you didn't tell them that in your syllabus. When I was a kid, plagiarism was expected. You were going to fail at least the assignment and not the class, period. Nobody put that in the syllabus. It might have been, it was said somewhere, but there was an understanding. Plagiarism was considered, you know, academically death at the high school level, certainly at the university level. But now, if you don't have this is what the infraction is and this is what the penalty will be, well, you can't enforce it.
Right.
You can't fail that student. I don't know if you have that over in the UAE like you would find it here in this country, certainly in the high school. You have to be really clear every single thing. And it's like, I can't make a judgment call, and it's like the kid that says, well, how come you're picking on me and not picking on him? Time out. I'm
Yeah.
talking about your behavior with you. I'm not talking about his behavior. And maybe that's one infraction there and your constant infraction. Maybe there's a little difference there. I'll deal
So,
with them. Right now, I'm dealing with you.
to answer your question, so at the university that I worked most at here, unfortunately for them, they have a policy where if you're caught sincerely doing plagiarism, you get kicked out of the university. So because they have a death penalty, not just, I never got I had students who plagiarized. I never got them kicked out because I'm like, death penalty is too high. Make them retake the course,
Yeah.
do a tiered thing. Do a tiered thing. And I was like, there's no world where I'm getting somebody
Oh,
kicked out of the university.
that makes no sense.
And so I never did it. I did have, you'll appreciate this. I'm teaching a capstone course called Strategic Management, and I had two groups. It doesn't matter what the class is. Anyhow, I had two groups that submitted beyond what they possibly could have done. It was MBA students couldn't do the project that they handed in. It was just beyond everything that a bachelor student could possibly do. And so I called them in and I said, "You're getting your A." Um, on the project because the project's outstanding, truly outstanding. But you have to tell me where you got it. And if you don't tell me where you got it, then I'm going to escalate this. And they're like, we paid $120 to the guys who work at the bottom of the bookstore, some Indians who work at the bottom of the bookstore, to do this project for us. And I
Oh, they
said, okay,
fessed right up.
what?
They fessed right up.
Oh, because they knew I had them dead to rights. So it was their this is their capstone course. They're about to graduate, and so it is either they fess up or they kicked out of the university with one course left. So they had no choice. You know, I had them by the short hairs. If you, yeah. Anyhow, um, uh, and so they fessed up, and I said, okay, thank you very much. You have your A, and now you're going to go back and you're going to give those Indians uh, the equivalent of $50 more, and tell them if they do something for UAU again, don't do so good.
There's a lesson here.
Yeah, yeah. And they did. I mean, they literally as they handed the money over, took a picture, just to send it to me that they followed through and they did it and whatever. Because I was like, you paid them way too little for what they did. Oh my God, you paid them way too little. Now, I don't know that anybody goes to the guys in the bottom of the bookstore. Anyhow, it truly is just 2 miles that way from me right now. Because now it's just AI slop that I'm like, you need to go back to the guys in the bookstore. They actually know how to do this better. Okay, let it go. Okay. I don't is I don't want to exhaust this topic anymore. I think we've kind of I think we're on agreement on this. Is there anything you think more we need to say on this topic?
No, I don't see any disagreement. I think we both are concerned that we see behaviors where, unfortunately, people don't have any sense that maybe I should be guilty and see a reason to change, to rectify, to reform, if you would. Um, you don't have to destroy their self-worth. They don't have to have shame and doubt that. They just don't have license to do whatever they want. And they need to realize that we live in a world, remember, it's dropping the pedal in the pond, right? It's got a ripple effect. It's got a bumper effect. Once you move into something, very little exists in a vacuum, and things have consequences. And at least in looking at school today, I think there are a lot of kids that don't believe there's a consequence for their action. I've been known to tell kids in the middle school and the high school, own your own actions, right? If you did it, I say put your cell phone away, somebody puts it away, it's done, right? But when you want to argue with it, say I didn't do that, oh my gosh, grow up. Own your own actions. Own it. Would we be in agreement on that too? That
Of course, of course.
write your own paper. If it's good, wonderful. If it's not so good, let's see what we can do. That's what education is about, right? To help you learn to do it better. You mentioned that speech, that quote, and Steve, it's so long ago and so many students ago. I don't remember that, but you said you came to you thought with like three or four different things, and I said, no, that's probably the best intro line to use.
Yep.
And that's what education is about, right? It's helping you find your way through things, to find
I
the
won.
best, and understand
I won by
that
your guidance.
that well, and your talent, you did well with that because you had to put the whole speech together too. So thank you for the credit. I will take the credit I have due on that, and I will give credit to you because you did well on that too. It's that student that writes a paper and you say, let's work on the beginning. Oh no, I like it the way it is. Okay, right? Education's a two-way street. So if you do it that way and you don't do so well, please own it and realize that yes, you can do whatever you want. You don't have license to hurt other people in your decisions. Go ahead.
That's
You raised your hand.
No, I raised my hand because we've so blown past the 20-minute thing that we agreed to.
Are
So
we re-
we're going to forgo where you asked me a question because this has been a great conversation, but we're going to end the recording here because we have definitely blown past the 20-minute that we're supposed to do.
I
So
need to set a timer because I have no idea how long we've gone.
it's okay. It's all fine. It's all good. We're just anytime we don't actually meet it, then you can ask me a question.
Maybe your editor can